Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us. It's been a wonderful weather today here in Hyderabad. Uh, we have a pretty interesting lineup of speakers today. Rather to say, leaders from different field who are joining us for this wonderful webinar on leadership. We have Mr. Pritin from Aditya Birla Group, Mr. RVG Kulkarni from HDFC Bank, and Mr. Saurabh Gupta, who happens to be the moderator for this session. Um, uh, Without any further delay, let me introduce Saurabh to all of you, the moderator for the session. Saurabh is a digital program leader, APAC from Raytheon Technologies. He's a blend of business and consulting experience across business incubation, strategy, new product development, partnership, and of course, setting up good, happy teams. He has experimented with various industry first, with fair amount of failures. Keen interest in experimenting with new ideas, customers engagement, design thinking, startup, and almost everything worth exploring. And the interesting part of all is, Saurav is also a golfer. He loves to play golf as well. So welcome, Saurav, and welcome to all the speakers. Saurav, you can take it from here.
Thank you, Shankar, for the kind and nice introduction. So thank you for that. Let me start by thanking T-Hub for creating this great platform called Plan B, Preparing for Tomorrow. I think that's something that is always work in progress. So congratulations, T-Hub, for that. And we really have an interesting panel today. So before I introduce them, let me set the context of what we are going to discuss today. Yes, we have all seen the topic today. It's all about leadership, and we are in unprecedented times. So I'm not going to overwhelm everybody by telling you the stats about how bad the time is. But we know where we are. We are at our all-time low. Our GDP is contracting. There's a sharp rise in unemployment. There is a stress on supply chain. Some of our businesses are in bad shape or are almost collapsed. For example, tourism, hospitality. There's a decrease in government income. There is a reduced consumer activity. You hear this, and this is what we have been hearing daily, right? World Bank estimates this is one of the worst recessions, or the worst recession that we're going to have after independence. But one thing that we all are missing from our past, we are a resilient nation, and we have always come out of that. And where does that resilient nature comes from? It comes from our leaders. And that is what this panel is all about, and that is what this discussion is all about. So let me, on that note, introduce my esteemed panel. We have RVG Kulkarni, Rajiv. I will not introduce him by what you already know and what has already been there. Let me explain you a little more about what he does and who is he. RVG, as he likes to be called, of course, he's a senior banker with a very successful private bank, but he also writes poems. He acts in TV shows. He writes stories, screenplays, songs, name a thing, and he's there. He's an excellent singer and has also worked as a model for a company. And that's not all. He's a fitness freak. He does yoga. He does lightweight training every day. He plays cricket, TT, badminton. And in addition to that, he's a great inspiring leader, part of various power panel discussions like this with various agencies. He has been teaching, he has been taking senior management classes on time management, communication skills, science of yoga, and a lot of other topics. And one of the most interesting things which I'm extremely happy to see him doing is that he has recently written an excellent book on leadership. The book is, and I request all of you to look at it. It is called Leaders is Getting Tripped. Leaders are Getting Tripped. I think this is an excellent read we all should get our hand to. So I really thanks RVG for coming onto this panel. Thanks for coming, Rajiv.
Thank you.
And from Rajiv, from a book writer to one who is covered as one of the top 100 leaders in India in a book itself, let me introduce Pritin. Again, of course, we all know he works with large corporate, and he's been doing some phenomenal work in digitization and creating B2B and B2C platforms. But he's much more than that. He's an angel investor. He's a super mentor. He is part of the funding committee of various accelerator programs. He works, he's an inclusion ambassador of SDG Chopal. He works with a community initiative with Niti Aayog, Ministry of Social Welfare, MSME, Government of India, WHO. So a lot of exposure in terms of uplifting, working with startup leadership, and much more. He also is one of the mentees and the he also supports a lot of other leadership skill courses and mentors founders and startups in these areas.
Thank you, Saurav, and thank you, Shankar, to invite us over.
Wonderful. So before I hand it over to my esteemed panel, let me set a tone for something interesting. A simple stat. I was going through one of the reports which says that 40% of workers are actually considering a job change as the pandemic finishes. Okay, because of they are disconnected with their current employers about how they have responded to pandemic. So that's a very interesting stat in terms of how is our workforce and how are people people feeling. So on that line, RVG, something to borrow from your book. What are some of the things that leaders can do today in these unprecedented times? What is the secret sauce and what are the key steps they should keep in mind as they engage and onboard new team players and engage with their existing ones? Over to you, Abhi.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shankar and Saurabh, for setting the tone. I know, as you rightly said, it is one of the worst crises probably in centuries to come. And it's always, whether it is a COVID or a pre or a post-COVID, it is difficult to engage people all the time. And of course, it's much more difficult to engage people during these crisis days. And I can quote probably with my experience how you can engage over there. One is that if you have to, particularly for bankers like us, it's an essential service. So we're supposed to go to the branch, cater to our customers, and make sure that our ATMs and networking is up. So we have to go to the branches. So the best thing is to have first the safety measures are in place. So that's what we did. So if you have to engage your people in these kind of crisis, first you have to give the confidence, give them all the essentials that will, protect them from the disease. At the same time, give a lot of awareness on how the virus spreads and what all precautions they have to take at their home as well as in office. So what we did was give a mask, a face shield, a hand sanitizer was used for every customer who was walking into the branch, and we also used a roster system. So in a system where if there are 10 branch people in the branch, only 5 are supposed to come to the branch, and we use that process system very systematically. That also can be used, and many of the sales staff, and this is applicable for many of the other organizations also, where they can work from home, and of course all the IT enabled BPOs and KPOs all work from home. And here we have a challenge. As you see, a lot of disturbances will be there at home. You will rob the privacy of the people at home. Sometimes you have large family members at home, so it is difficult, but at the same time we can facilitate that by increasing the bandwidth and also give the particular database that the people can use. In banking particularly, the relationship manager is supposed to manage set of high-end clients, and of course over a period of time the bank has also invested in digitalization and also moving all the products and services to the other platforms other than the bank, like net banking, mobile banking, etc. So all our relationship managers made sure that the customers at their convenience were serviced. All their investment needs were taken care. So you can always engage with that. In addition to that, some of the customer staff members were given a database, and in addition, we also had family entertainment programs for our staff members in order to kill the boredom. And some of the events like drawing competition for children of our staff members were arranged, and singing competition was arranged. In addition to that, with this digitalization and global networking, and people also started getting network. They had a network of their close family, friends, their colleagues, and colleagues with other departments. And most of the discussions which used to happen, meetings used to happen face to face, that all moved to digital. So engaging people, whether it is COVID, pre or post COVID, is a challenging task. But in this case, the technology also helped us. But at the same time, we were in an essential service. So there was no option but to engage ourselves to take care of the financial needs of the customers.
Absolutely. And I can imagine when all of us are trying to stay indoors to get your loved ones out to work, which is applicable in your essential services, you need a lot of motivation, a lot of incentivization, and a lot of assurance, as you rightly said, in terms of they would be kept safe and they would be taken care of. So thank you, Rajiv, for giving these inputs. Quick one for our participants, team. We will have some time for Q&As towards the end of the session. Please feel free in the meantime to ask your questions in the chat window. I will be happy to take them during the discussion or towards the end of it. That will also help me in terms of decide what you want to hear. So now going to Preetam. Preetam, we do know that there is a certain leadership style that is required in large organizations, right? But leadership, as we were discussing yesterday, is also about anybody who has a team of two is also a leader. And there is a lot of startup mentors who would be there, startup founders who will be there on call and listening us today. They had unprecedented time. They were probably small businesses. They had a cash flow issues, supply chain issues, and whatnot. In those scenarios, for the startups in specific, if you're not a large organization, what are the key ingredients to look for? What are the key things that a founder can work on, which can help them in terms of staying focused and delivering leadership as well as a resilient growth? Over to you.
Yeah, I think, of course, unprecedented time for everyone. But I think for a startup, for a founder, where you're the small team, there is first thing that comes is what I call very essential for leadership, is to be the visionary and the faith keeper, right? If you lose faith in everything that you're building or you want to build, right from the market, your business plans to the ecosystem, I think you cannot do that. At the same time, you cannot lie to your team, but I think people capture that immediately, right? If you are not, you have to be the faith keeper. That's one thing. The second thing, I think we all lost our capability of listening, and I personally feel that we have to go back to the drawing board, and what I call is active listening. In typical room, when you meet your customers, you meet your clients, even when you meet your employees, right? You are catching and listening to the non-verbal skills. Now, suddenly that ability is gone. There's a limitation that you can capture, say, over a Zoom call, right? Sometimes you get distracted with what's behind the person, right? Rather than who that person is. So I think, some of the startups that I've been mentoring, I said, how did the call go? He said, call went well. I said, did you listen to what he was not saying? And he said, oh, what are you saying, Preetan? I said, yeah, I think every human being says a lot with saying something, by not saying something. I said, was your customer consistent on what he told you last time? And suddenly, it opened up their heart and the mind. He said, no, Preetan, we've not been doing so. I think we just missed that. So I think intentionally, unintentionally, all of us say a lot of things. All of us say not, all of us don't say things. So the reactions, the emotions, I think that's, again, I think we were so used to it over the years. Suddenly, that touch and feel went. So that's the second part, I would say, that people have to really look at it. The third part is what I call brilliant basics. You cannot lose your eye on the on what I say, your KPIs, whatever those KPIs be. At the same time, you have to be conscious to give that breathing space that is required by your employees, right? And I give an example. One of my colleagues, she just has a 2-year-old daughter, and there are times where, unfortunately, our calls go beyond 6 o'clock, right? And so she's there. So we sometimes say, hey, bring her on the phone. Let's hear her opinion. What is she to say? And it just lightens up the movement, right? And so she says something, we understand something, we wave her to her, and for 5-10 minutes, we're not even talking work. That's very important. That's very important to I don't think you should compartmentalize saying this is work, this is office, this is playtime.
Excellent, Preetan. Thanks for those inputs. In fact, the active listening or the vision part or the faith part and the brilliant basics, I think these are some key points. One of the things that I have interacted with startups and I have found, and which I always tell them, that while you have some blurriness in your vision in the long run or where you want to be, you can have a long-term plan. It's very important to be clear in short term. And what we have seen in pandemic, some people have become greedy. Let's make something which is for short run, or some people have gone to myopic. I think the most important thing is to have a very clear short-term agile strategy. And the second important point is that any person in your team, and startups will typically be from 10 to 15 people at max, should have the same objective. Absolute transparency and consistency where we want to be tomorrow. Day after tomorrow, we can figure it out. The world will take its own course. But tomorrow definition and the vision of in the short run should be extremely consistent and transparently shared across all the stakeholders in the startups. So thank you, Preetan and Rajiv, on this input. Going on to a similar topic, we have to get up from here. We had difficult times and we have to go back to work. In Rajiv's case, I think a lot of people are already back to work. We have to get more from the people to even cover up for what we have lost. In those kind, Rajiv, how do you motivate people and to deliver more? How do you get more out of teams? That's something I would like to take RBG's inputs, and obviously, Preetan, I would like to come to you on that also, because that's an important thing that we all as leaders needs to ensure. How do we get best out of our teams as they get back to work or they're already on work? RBG.
Thanks, Saurabh. I think it's a very pertinent question. In any organization, getting the best out of every person is a challenge, and it's the primary objective of an organization also. At the same time, the people also feel very happy if they give their full potential. Then only somebody will be happy. People not just work for money or a position, it's also the kind of satisfaction that they derive out of the job that they are doing. So I think as a leader, one must know the strengths and weaknesses of their staff. I would say leader, most of the times people think that it is only a general manager, executive director, and a managing director of a company. Not necessarily. For me, leader is a supervisor who has got 2 people or 5 people reporting to him, and he has to lead the team. So if you have a large organization, you have a layers of hierarchy, which is inevitable over a period of time. But at the same time, if you have to merge the objective of the organization or the leadership there, or their core vision and philosophies, those have to be implemented. I think the same vision has to be going down. It should percolate down to the last person over there, the front end staff. So I think it is very important that we get the best out of everybody. So as I said earlier, if we know a supervisor knows the strength and weaknesses of a staff, he must first capitalize on the strength. Most of the times we adopt a negative approach. Rather, we start with a positive approach where somebody is already under stress because of the cold. There is a threat of losing a job. There is a family member who is affected by the disease. So we must first give an opportunity to a staff and give them the capitalize on their strengths. And then if there is a weakness over there, strength can be in case of a sales organization, it can be a product knowledge, it can be a communication skills or a process knowledge, right? So that has to be capitalized. And if there is a weakness over there, I don't think there is any weakness which cannot be cured. So we have a wonderful training program over there. We have mentorship, we have coaching. Most of the times people try to training rather instead, I would say, go for a coaching. A cricket coach, till you master a particular stroke, it can be a glance or a hook, he keeps on throwing the ball in a particular angle so that a batsman learns that skill. That is called what we call coaching. So till a person learns that, acquires that skill, we need to coach them also. For that, we need a lot of patience. And motivation is always from within. If you put a pressure on an egg from outside, it will break. But there is a pressure from inside, you have a life coming out of it. So there are lots and lots of factors for motivation. And many times we have to own up the people. The moment the employee starts differentiating between him and the organization, he doesn't own up. And similarly, the leaders don't own up their people down the line. I think there is a huge gulf over there. There'll be a conflict there. And lastly, people say that if you are successful, you get you get a lot of happiness. In fact, it is the other way around. If you are happy, you get more success. So that is the logical way of going back to the people and make them happy. And as I said earlier, happiness is not just depending upon the kind of money we give, the bonuses we give. It is a work environment, the way people are treated. Are we empathizing with them, right? So why people lie? So in my book, I am telling the same thing. If a leader has a weakness, there are people who are there to capitalize and trip the leader. So why do you have a weakness? So you have to believe your people, take them on their face value, and give all the tools that are required to get the best out of it. And of course, you have to have a fair assessment and appraisal formats, promotion policies, which are unbiased, irrespective of the caste, color, creed, region, religion, so that the person who gets into the system stays forever, and then automatically gets motivated. So you cannot even on a daily basis sit on somebody's head and keep getting the best out of it. It won't happen. It has to come from within. I think it's challenging, but it's an ongoing process, if you ask.
Thank you, RBG. Preetan, over to you. How to get more out of people as they get back to business?
Right. I think first, let me take a sort of a philosophical view. By the way, I'm also a student and a learner of philosophy. The fundamental is wherever we go, we take our mind with us, and wherever we take our mind, we take the condition of our mind with us, right? And that's something we all need to understand. I also sort of use the power of questions for myself and my team, and this is what I ask myself: that did I eliminate barriers for my team to get things done? And in today's world, the pandemic world, this is more important because we don't know what that barrier is today. It's no more, it's a barrier of transportation or technology. There could be a lot of other barriers, and RVG, alluded to some of the stuff that people may be in some stress. So best thing to do is be conscious and ask yourself that have I eliminated barriers for my team to get things done? And everybody should ask and should percolate down to everybody. The second thing is that what can you do? How can you spark willingness and enthusiasm in people? That's another thing, because again I come back, I'm connecting these two dots to the condition of the mind. One is already agitated, one is already stressed, and a small barrier itself can sort of blow up on you and your team, and then the way your team interacts with your internal customers, your external customers. And finally, I would say give feedback to people. I'm sure we all used to do it in the good old world, but today it's more important for people to just to know, are they doing right? Are they meeting their expectations? Let them not feel or get anxious that will I come to know after 6 months in my appraisal whether I did right or wrong. Just give them feedback, give them positive feedback, give them constructive feedback, but give feedback.
Excellent, excellent. So give feedback, stay transparent, inform, make them feel secure, they are taken care of. Some of these things, some of these basics have to be done before we expect them to perform and deliver more than what they were out delivering earlier and cover up for things that we were doing. Excellent. So on that piece, one more interesting topic which came up is that about, I was looking at one of the report which says 42% employees global worldwide, it's a McKinsey report says 42% people globally or employees globally are facing mental issues or mental health related issues since pandemic kicked in. That potentially will lead to not a very fit workforce coming back or delivering right now as we start working. Hence, the conflict resolution becomes very, very important. It can be conflict between the two teams. It can be conflict within the team. It can be conflict between the suppliers and the customers. Earlier, it used to be very easy, right? Call them over, make them sit with each other, have a cup of coffee, and sort it out. It wasn't easy, but at least leaders had visual clues to depend upon, and some of those things could be resolved like this way. Now we are overly stressed because of the internal conflicts, overworked out, long working hours. Conflict resolution and the mental health becomes very important. What do you suggest? What are the yardsticks? What are the key things that we should do, Preethan? And I'll come to RVG later, in terms of gauging employees' mental health and resolve some of the conflicts that may arise because of the times that we are in.
Yeah, I think a few things, Saurabh. One is, as I said in my first point to you, active listening. Be very, very conscious what people are saying, what people are not saying. Second thing is, don't overwhelm them with too many requests. In fact, some of my colleagues in some of our Aditya Birla Group businesses have informal arrangement that a particular day in a month is a no meeting day. There'll be no meetings on that day, whatever be busy, and they have time to catch up on their emails, catch up on anything. So these are some things that you could do at an individual level for your team. There's one other founder who I was talking to, and just this is just early when COVID got hit, and he was working on a proposal, and he I think was pinging his team constantly on the WhatsApp over the weekend. I said, you can't do this. I said, otherwise also I would not recommend you do it, but in COVID times you just can't do it. If you want, please go back and renegotiate the timeline with your customer. I'm sure he will understand. It'll take a day or two extra, but this is not right. Third thing is the organization support. Fortunately, again, very proud to be part of the Aditya Birla Group. We have a helpline, called Life Unlimited. So see, I'm not a qualified counselor or anything, right? I can be a good leader or manager. So we encourage our employees to do that. In fact, one of my colleagues lost his dad because of COVID, and his mother. So I said, my friend, no words, no condolence messages on WhatsApp will help you. Why don't you call up this helpline of ours? Just speak to the counselor, right? These are trained professional people. Just talk to them. You'll just feel good about it. So sometimes you just have to help people to connect to the right people and get out of the way. You will do more good by getting out of the way. So that's what I would recommend, sir.
Preethan, thanks for those inputs. Very valuable. RVG, any inputs on these from your side?
Yeah, conflict resolution is extremely critical and important, and always stress levels are there in every organization, and more so when you have a COVID situation where you don't know when you go out whether you are infected or not. There were a lot of psychological pressures whether somebody had a COVID or not. And after the infection, in fact, the staff and also the family members also will have anxious moments till somebody gets a negative report. And I think conflicts comes, as I said earlier, the objective of an organization and the objective of a staff is conflicting. Always there is a stress when there is something, expectation is there, and a reality is something different. So if they are merging, there is a confluence of objectives of both the staff in the organization. I don't think there is a reason for any conflict also. For example, in this COVID situation, safety is the most stressful point for a staff. Now, as an organization, if I give every possible safety measure and I have an auditor who goes and verifies all these things, including all the supervisors, then we have the common agenda there. Like, I want my staff to be safe, and my staff also wants to be safe. For example, if there is a hospitalization issue, they don't know where to go. We had arranged all across, we had a tie-up with all the hospitals. We were able to arrange quickly, not only for the staff, but also for the family members of the staff. Now, where is the conflict here? He wants to get the best possible treatment. We have arranged the best possible treatment. Then comes the settlement of the bills. We have a mediclaim from the bank, and of course, they will have their own mediclaim policies. A cashless, if I arrange for a settlement of their bills, the staff is happy, the organization is also happy. And of course, as we heard just now, there is a counseling also required. A lot of psychological issues would crop up before and after the infection. So we also had a counseling line. So these are all extremely critical. Conflict is always there in any organization. As I said earlier, the objective of the person and individual and the organization should start. Now, opposite to stress is happiness. Now let us understand what is the source of happiness. You have various hormones that actually create happiness in our mind. You go for an exercise of more than half an hour, be it yoga or aerobics or HIIT, you get adrenaline in your body, which comes from within. So you'll be very happy. Dopamine is a hormone that is essentially another happiness causing hormone. You get it when you get a pat on the back. You get recognized for the work you have done. And most of the times leaders tend to ask hundreds of questions. Instead of that, why don't you say, don't worry. See, everybody can make a mistake. In this case, a lot of mistakes do happen there when they execute a work. So if somebody says, don't worry, I'm there to help you. Okay, it should not have been done. It is done. Now let us find a way out. So for every problem, we have hundreds of solutions if we want. So we can find out a solution to make sure that the staff is made at ease. And last, probably the best source of happiness is oxytocin. That comes when you love, when somebody loves you at home and in your office environment, in the right spirit. So when you are loved by you love your organization, people love you, leaders love you, I think there is no stress and conflict. So in addition to that, of course, most of the companies also went for it. We had online yoga sessions early in the morning at 6 o'clock. We had pranayama sessions, and we also had a training sessions for the needy staff, counseling, as you said earlier. And some of the staff members, you may not believe, apart from doing the work, in association with Cyberabad Commissioner, Mr. Sajjanar, we went in for mobilizing funds on our own and then delivering the food packets to the needy people during the first wave. In the first few days, we did that. So I think conflict will be there. Stress is part of life, but stress gets disappeared if you start enjoying whatever you are doing. So I think most of the organization, unfortunately, doesn't get highlighted there in the media because everybody wants a negative news to be fed. But believe me, we were associated with a lot of organizations and NGOs and health authorities and police and law enforcement agencies. A lot of good work has gone into it. And I think because, as you said, we are a resilient nation, we have beaten, if you ask me, looking at the kind of population we had, the kind of people per square kilometer, the highest density in the world, well, I think we have successfully beaten the virus. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, RVG, for giving the chemistry of happiness. In fact, chemistry, how to deal and get people motivated and resolve conflict. I think the key things that both of you talked about is stay transparent, make them feel secure, make them appreciate them, keep active listening and positive communication. Some of those things are key ingredients for a happy team, and that really responds in terms of translates into a higher achievement, a much happier engagement, and some of those key KPIs that we monitor. So thank you for that. Let me again remind our audience that I'm happy to take any Q&As in between. So please keep typing, please raise your hands, and we will incorporate those and ask our panelists on the issues that we want us to address. Going on to a similar topic and continuing our discussion, I think one of the important things is of course one of the things that I think we got impacted with the whole online scenario is the learning ability, or the learning scale that we were. Obviously, you cannot learn enough on Zoom calls, while all our children are doing that, and they probably have crossed 1 year of their schooling over Zoom. But I think overall, in the whole pressure of household, office, Zoom, one thing that got impacted the most is upskilling, and that's an important agenda for any leader. How equipped is your team for tomorrow? How you are improving the skill of your team in comparison to what competition is doing? And that's the only thing that lasts. So how do you upskill, and how do you ensure there is enough learning agenda? What are the digital tools you can use? What are the key things to be kept in mind? How to make learning as one of the priority and one of the things to be delivered upon, especially in the financial sector and some of the sectors that you're dealing with. RVG, any inputs on that? How to avoid, as you say in your book, how to avoid being tripped by using the learnings that we can, by imparting and using the learning as one of the toolkit. Over to you, Abhijit.
Yeah, thank you. See, a lot of characters or attributes of a leaders are there, and in fact, the leader is the one who enjoys the chaos. He's a visionary. He understands what he can do, what he cannot do. He does the things. He redoes the things, and he conveys the grand design. He spots the talent, and he accepts the failures and mistakes, and many more such characters are there. But one of the most important, I think, a character of a leader is the vision. If he has the vision, he knows that and how he can navigate his organization and along with his people over say for the next decade or so. So he understands what is there in store for in the future. So that's what we call a vision. A visionary leaders, you look at any successful organization, you have visionary leaders. And once you set up the vision, is not going to take you there unless you have the requisite people who have the skills. It's not necessarily hiring young. It means they are cut out for the future leadership program. Today, with this kind of a technological development that is happening all around us and which is unprecedented, you need to understand what is going to happen in the next 5-10 years and what kind of skill sets are required in the team in order to reach over there. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So I think the first and foremost importance is the visionary objective, or where you want to be your organization for next few years down the line, and what are the skill sets that are required. Once you identify that, and you have to go back and hire those people, train them, coach them, and make sure that they are on the right path. In addition to that, particularly in the banking sector, I would say the digital growth has become inevitable across all the sectors, and more so in the banking sector. And I'm very happy and proud to say that, in fact, because of the vision of our leadership earlier and now, earlier Mr. Aditya Puri and now Mr. Shashi Jagdishan and his team, I think they are anticipated digital is going to be the way of life. Okay, you may not believe, with 55% of the branches in semi-urban and rural areas, we have 95% of the non-financial transaction moved to the digital platform. We have 85% of the financial transactions moved already to the digital platform. Can you believe a farmer in a remote village does his fund transactions, fund transfers using his smart mobile? He applies for a checkbook using his mobile smartphone, right? So this is already in place. This is already in place. And you must understand what all is required to set up a team backward in order to ensure that my digital channels are up and running. Branch is only a front face, but in addition, we have the ATM network is there. We have the CSC channels, business correspondent channels in the semi-urban and rural areas. Plus, you have the mobile and net banking. In fact, from few transactions, we can do more than 200 transactions over there on the mobile banking, net banking, and 100 plus on the mobile. And for corporates, we have the eNet, which is CBX, which is the much more advanced. So literally, they don't have to ever visit a branch there. So I think investment in building teams is definitely there, considering your vision statement and the skills that are required over there. And then, of course, you also have to have a very good technology platform in order to take your vision to the next level. I think it is extremely important that, and the best part of COVID era is the number of companies they started investing in future in the digitalization process. I think every company has gone into it, except for even in agriculture sector, which was open. I can quote lots and lots of developments happening in order to cater to the to build the teams for the future.
Excellent. So eventually there is a silver lining to all this crisis. So I think
Yes,
the digitalization is the clear silver lining that emerged. And in fact, if I could summarize what Abhijit is saying is that leadership vision with what I call as leadership intent to deliver the vision. Vision is very important. That's what he covered towards the later part.
and Saurabh, I have just one more point. One point is that I think we also have to keep an eye on the technology. Keep an eye on the technology, but never ever lose a human touch.
Wow, that's wonderful. Yeah, we all are guilty of using technology as a tail that wags the dog a lot of times. But I think the important piece that you said, the vision supported by the intent and built on a strong digital platform is a right summary that is a recipe for success in terms of how do you prepare and train. One of the key skills from a startup ecosystem, there would be opportunities emerging in this ambiguous world. And one of the key skills that all these startups needs to have is thriving in ambiguity. How do startup prepare from a skill perspective, as they have so many other agendas to focus upon, and survival probably in the short run? What should be the training priorities that a startup founder should have, and how should he go about training needs of its team as well as himself?
It's a very good question. And again, I'm really telling you from, I may sound prescriptive, but some of the debates, arguments I've been having with some of the founders that I'm mentoring. The fact is that there is a fatigue when it comes to digital, right? You're spending 9-10 hours in front of a screen. So if I tell, if somebody were to go and tell an employee, here is a e-learning program, and some of the popular courses that we used to do in the past pre-COVID times, it's not going to happen. It's too much of exhaustion. Plus, offline also, either what happens after you close shop, you either consume content again on the television, Netflix, Prime, Amazon Prime, or you're consuming content on WhatsApp. So that's the challenge we're having. So what we said that why don't we divide training into 2 or 3 things? One is the functional skills, I would say the technical skills, right? Second thing is there's a good chance to get functional skills. And here are functional skills. If you're a startup, let's say, working in a field of say fintech, right? A lot of the people today I see in startups are excellent technical people, right? They understand AWS cloud and also. So we said, why don't we have sessions where we call people from the finance industry, call people who have worked there, call our customers, and let's hear from them. What's their challenge? What are they feeling? And this is the best time to hear from people. So in fact, even one of my colleagues in ABG, we used to have this town hall, and says he just said, and I sort of got late, and I suddenly see one of a customer in a town hall, in a company's town hall, and we did an open Q&A like you're doing right now. So we asked him, sir, kaise chal raha hai aapka business, kya ho raha hai, how's the market there, what are the challenges, do you know about a product, what do you think of product? And I thought that was a fun, brilliant way of learning, right? I mean, just takes the whole engagement to the next level. So you know exactly, if you're a founder and your team, that what is happening to your product and your service. So it's also getting a feedback. And the final thing is, the learning can also be taken, in what typical every good mentor and coach does is you walk along with your team. So you give them templates, say, okay, let's do something here. Let's just all of us work together. Again, of course, you have to rely on a Zoom or a Mural to do that. But doing it together today, it's a better way to do rather than saying, go to a course on Udemy, come back to me after 2 months with a certificate that your learning is done. I think this is the time to experiment also.
Perfect. I think those are very important inputs involved. Do a group activity still. And in fact, in your group activities, feel free to involve your suppliers and customers, show them that you're investing in the skill and acquiring the skills that they will be requiring tomorrow from your side. Some of these things are very, very important. And as we prepare for tomorrow. This is a logical stop at 40 minutes. I have a couple of more things to ask our panel, but I just want to see if anybody I see, so not to lose the human touch as Andrew was typing, anybody has any questions that they want to ask the panel at this point in time before I move ahead. Shankar, it's time for you to get active and see if there is anybody who wants to be unmuted.
Sure, Saurabh. So we haven't received any questions so far, but one of the viewers in our LinkedIn LinkedIn channel is asking is there is a lot been happening all around, and being a startup founder, we don't have that much of investments, neither do we have that much of outreach as other corporate does. So how do you think we can be stable, we can be emotionally happy in such a situation? To any of the speakers, if at all it can go.
Ethan, would you like to take this?
Yeah, I can give you a very good example. In fact, my first company that I invested as an angel investor is actually a travel company. And you can imagine what has happened to it in the last 1.5 years, right?
Yeah.
And again, I'll give you an example. The founders, and I really admire the founder, he and his team are going out of the way, first and foremost, keeping their employees engaged, doing a lot of group activities. Like I just mentioned, in fact, I did some with them. Second thing they did is they pivoted the business model, again taking inputs from the market. Right, so now they're coming up with something saying hotel in a box in a mobile phone. So why should a front end receptionist now be a front end receptionist all the time? He can go back in the warehouse, and they just pivoted the whole thing into a hotel in a mobile phone. And again, that gives the vision, and what RBG was saying, the vision to the company, saying that we are here for the hotel industry. Even they're going through a tough time. Let's solve their problem also. They don't need 10 people at the receptionist. The 10 people can be multitask during the day in the properties as they were opening up. The third thing is, I again believe that know your consciousness first. I believe in this KYC, and my KYC is tougher than RVG's KYC of HDFC Bank because I have five layers of KYC. And the first layer of a KYC is know your consciousness, right? Then know your company, then know your colleagues, know your customers, and then know your competition. To know your own consciousness, I personally believe, very strongly believe, there's the power of journaling. And there are very good journals, books available where they are pre-filled there are templates and forms. This will just challenge you. These are exercises that you could do. And again, this brings you back from those Zoom screens and the WhatsApp screen. Take paper and pen and start writing. Believe me, it has a therapeutic effect on you. When you write your thoughts and what is bothering you, when you start planning it, and it's a very simple journal that come. If I were to recommend it, and I'm not endorsing any brand, but I'm a big fan of this journal that's available called Tiny Change. It's a small blue book, red book, Tiny Change. Fantastic. The founders, I should give a hats off to the founders. They're doing a fantastic job. You could journal your week. You can journal your day, your week, your month. You could reflect. See, all these journaling tools helps you to reflect of what you've gone through and what has worked and what has not worked. It doesn't give you an answer, but I think even RVG will agree that don't underestimate the power of your subconscious to come and heal you, right? All you have to do is this journaling helps you to connect the two and creates the space, and then you leave it to the nature and the universe, and it will solve the problems. So Shankar, there's your answer.
Wonderful. I think I like to quote a very interesting example. I have a Marwadi next door. So I said, "What are you up to these days? Your shop is closed." He said, "I'm rebuilding the shop from inside, which I have not done in last 40 years." So I think all are resilient. We all know how to survive. As we survive, let's rebuild. Let's focus on training. Let's pick up a new skill. Let's prepare for tomorrow when it opens up. What is the opportunity that I will have it in my hand and go from there? Are we on that? The toolkit or a checklist, a founder, a journaling, excellent example, Preetam. I am going to certainly go to Tiny Change and subscribe to journaling. In your personal capacity, in terms of what are the key things a checklist a leader or a startup founder can maintain and do, some of the activities which can keep them going in this ambiguous time, and of course, can also keep team going in this ambiguous time. What is the checklist?
Yeah, I think one, we have been associated with the THub and many more startup ecosystems for quite a long time. I think we have a separate department now, and I've personally associated with all the startup companies for quite a long time, and we have a very long-term association with the THub. And with whatever interaction and little bit of experience that I have, I can say that I know the first thing is that the startups don't have access to the banking channel, so they have to depend on angel investors or some other investors who are there. So then secondly is that when you choose a particular product or a service that you want to develop, I think they have to do a lot of groundwork. They have to understand how the industry is shaping up, Who are the competitors there? What are the entry and exit barriers? Or is it so easy and you start and people start buying your product and then overnight you become a millionaire? And investors also will not just like that jump and pump money into it, because as you know, 9 out of 10 startups can be failures. While we read a lot of success stories, there is a challenge over there. And secondly, the time also for the promoters is very limited. Within a particular time, they have to get results. Otherwise, it's very desperate, to continue over there. So I think the choice of the product and the sector in which they are getting into, understanding that is very critical. If you are getting into a regulatory body like some of the lending platform that we had, a lot of frauds were there. You must know what the law of the land is all about, right? So you also have to understand the legal framework over there. I think you also probably get associated with ecosystems like T-Hub. For example, the way it is shaped up, you have triple IT helping into the technology front, Nasser, which will help you into the legal aspects of it. Okay, right? And you have bankers like us getting associated and help them. In order to ease all these things, what we have in the bank is, as I said, a separate wing for startups. Secondly, we also run some marathons and then help them take up some of the products developed by the startups. In fact, we have invested in some of the startup companies, and if their products are good for us, we have adopted them in our banking system also wherever it is possible. And thirdly, we also have an interface between HNWIs and the startups there. We had done it a couple of times here, and we continue to do so that we have an investor on one side who is interested. So we also evaluate the startups on various fields and get the specific customer base, and we in fact conducted in T-Hub. So I think these are very critical and important. So these checklists are very important for any startup to, and patience. You need to have a lot of patience. You cannot just over a period of time sell your product. And secondly, what is your target segment? What is your customer segment? If the customer segment needs that product, you don't have to actually canvas. Word of mouth publicity, as you know, in any industry works very fast. Okay, so you need to have a patience over there. Wait for the right opportunities, and then associate with organizations like T-Hub, because they have access to the investors also, and they have a lot of mentoring program. I think they need to have patience and develop these networking. That's another thing. Very important thing is networking. That all I think is the minimum checklist I would suggest for any startup to start with.
Absolutely. Wonderful, Abhiji. I think while I'm personally a champion of failures, they teach you a lot, but I think we all can avoid them by a simple checklist. Use your network, we leverage ecosystem like T-Hub, know your customer, address their needs. Some of those things, if you do it well, you will mostly survive. And if you fail, you will learn from it and will probably end up having a better startup. We have always seen that the second or the third startup, I'm not want to discourage the ones who are at the first startup, but the second and third startups are much more successful than the first ones. And there are numerous examples that you will see in the overall space with that. On that account, I have a question from Raveen to Preetanji. Preetanji, I am a founder of a manufacturing industry. Anytime we found comment from an investor or people that so-and-so business model is scalable, but it may be not be solving a good problem. So the question is, can we make an idea scalable with expert or mentor help? Or if idea is not scalable, how they get funded? Over to you, Preeti.
Very good question. I think a few years ago, when I got active in the startup world and the ecosystem in India, I also was on the same side that when I used to evaluate ideas, business plans, I used to say, this is not scalable. This will not go. And that time I used to spend time in Bangalore. I said, this will not go out of your Koramangala area also. You can't scale up in Bangalore. But unfortunately, at that time, we didn't have any answer as to how do you scale. But over the years, I realized that the best way to scale is to create a value framework. And the value framework basically is nothing but something which I came up with as an acronym, where the V stands for validation. Go and validate your model with as many partners, as many target personas that you could have. Keep validating it. That is the best way. Yes, mentors are there to there, but they will guide you, they will show you, but they will not walk the talk with you. Finally, your target market will show you whether you can scale or you can't scale. The second thing to scale is today, you as a startup should not compete as a startup. You should compete as an ecosystem. And you look at all our digital unicorns or soon to be unicorns, they're competing as an ecosystem. They're not competing as an individual. So find people who can do advocacy for you, to help you to scale. The other thing, I as an investor will always look at the longevity of your startup. So that is the L of your value, right? What happens after 6 months? What happens after 1 year? What happens if somebody offers what you're offering free of cost, right? Will you survive? Then the U part of the value framework is the use cases. I think one thing that I see many founders that I've been talking to, they're just because they come from one particular background, their use case is very limited to the comfort area that they are in. They don't even think about the use cases of their service or their offering beyond that use case. So I said that the other way to scale is that you just create some more use cases for your technology services with a little bit of an add-on. And the final part of the value framework, which is the E, is the whole VALU. You keep experimenting it, right? You try something, it works, doesn't work, quickly come back and say it just doesn't work, go back. I mean, I don't want to quote an Amazon, Airbnb, or anybody, but you will find very good business models that have been pivoted over the years. COVID or no COVID, the only reason is because they experimented very fast. So I hope I answered Mr. Ravin's question.
Well, I'm sure you did. I found it very interesting and intriguing, and it's pretty clear in terms of how to use it. In fact, I think the most important thing is what you highlighted, right? Scalability may not be visible in short run, but if you have a strong value proposition, you will pivot. Okay. So sometimes we can be myopic and guilty of it. If idea is not scalable, let me be honest and straight. A definition of scalability can vary, but if it's not scalable, you are not really doing a $1 million startup. You may be running a small business in short run, but scalability is the key.
That's why just the validation part early in your business plan is so important. That is the only way you scale. Validate.
Absolutely. Value proposition is a very, very important, and validation of that value proposition at different interval as you pivot is very, very important. I know RVG have something interesting to add on it. So over to you, RVG.
Yeah, see, most of the times, investors, what they look for is that they also, of course, want to have a best possible return for the investment they make. What they look at is, and from the banking point of view, I'm saying, because we are into major lending there, we also see how is your sales, right from the beginning. After 6 months, 1 year into your system, you have started your company, how your sales are. If it is going up every month, quarter basis, irrespective of the external conditions, I think maybe COVID, there is a dip there, but otherwise you start scaling up. So one is your sales figures, your top line and bottom line, anybody looks for. And secondly, what do you do with the money that we give it to you? You do use it as an overdraft facility. That means you have a problem in your receivables, or your outstanding some more, or probably you are pushing too hard to sell your product over there. Then if your receivables are good, you use that money for probably a capacity enhancement, or it can be a core research, R&D. And lastly, of course, the pricing and end use of the money that we give. So most of the time, the investors look at these parameters, and if they are encouraging and you have a very good signals there, your balance sheet, basically, as I said earlier, I think they don't mind investing over there.
And one of the things that I would like to add, Ravin, is that in case you believe that your idea is not scalable, please reach out to people who have seen more in terms of how platform ripple effect works. How do you create the overall effect? How do you get more business from the existing customer? How can you sell more? How do you make an idea sellable? Reach out to the mentors. It's very, very helpful. Discuss with your ideas. They will always help you before you go for the round of funding or go asking for money. I think it's important to have. Sometimes I have seen that with a lot of startups, you have excellent idea, you are a technocrat, but you don't have either enough experience or the communication skills or the marketing knowledge to cover the gaps. So interact with the ecosystem which is available in form of T-Hub, mentors, and things like that, and go from there. And if there is a strong value proposition, there is a strong validation, I'm sure RVG and the similar type of companies and angel investors have enough money to fund you at this point in time also. Perfect. Any other questions, Shankar, that you see? Any raised hands?
Yes, so I don't see any raised hand, but there is a couple of questions in the Q&A box. So Mr. Ali wants to ask, how do you suggest to train your staff in this crisis virtually or in person? As I see, online trainings are not that as impactful as offline training.
Okay, I think that question has been answered extensively by Preetan and RVG. Yeah. So I think the key skill is to use digital tools. Make sure instead of standalone training session, it's more collaborative and more real time. where people come together. Gamification is an important aspect where you engage and play with them while you teach them. Some of those things are important aspect, and there is enough and more that we covered as they rewind and hear what our esteemed panel had to say on that account.
Yeah.
Yes, Shankar. Anything else, Shankar? Another question or anything that's there?
No, we don't have any further questions as of now. Yeah, we don't have.
So I think on the closing, I want to stick to the time. So on the closing comments, I would like to hear from both of you in terms of how. Of course, I know that both of you are avid readers and a kind of a health freak, health conscious for sure. So what are the things that you do in terms of keeping your leadership skills sharp in this today's time? I think if you can close on that piece, that would be an interesting insight for all of us. Let's start with RVG and then we'll go to Preeti.
I think sort of leadership is not a stage where you go and settle down there. Okay, it's a constant evolving process. We cannot say that I've become a leader now, so I've stopped learning. So I think as a leader, not only one should push the organization and the people, but one also should push himself or herself. Then leadership is also a lot about learning the kind of changes that are happening around. I think we must also learn how to do we must also keep learning more and more. And you want to accelerate the pace of success as a leader. You must also be able to accept the pace of mistakes as well. So these are very critical and important in order to have a better leadership qualities over there. And leadership also, not just, most of the time there is a pressure to have either a top line or a bottom line. There is nothing like a sustainable, scalable organization over a period of time. Even if somebody is not there, have we built a process? Have we built enough leadership depth in the system in an organization where it is self-sustaining and on its own? It's not just that I have to quickly get the quarterly results and get out of that and end my term as 3 years or 5 years as a leader over there. So I think sustainability, I would say, is very critical for me particularly. And lastly, I think there has to be some ethics and moral and social responsibility. Without that, it is not an inclusive growth. Inclusive growth also, I mean, keeping in mind the environment there. If we don't take care of the environment, it will reclaim either in the form of a COVID or some other way. The nature knows how to reclaim its rightful place in the earth, on the earth. So I think these are very critical. So I need to probably develop these skills, or all the leaders should develop these skills in order to have a sustainable, lively, and very enjoyable life as a leader, and also take the organization to a very great level, keeping in mind the environment.
Very important toolkit, RVG. It's really, really appreciated. I think one of the key skills as the new age leaders, while we have the CSR Act and so many other things, is the importance to look at the social side of things. It's a more inclusive growth, as you rightly said. So thank you for providing that. That's really useful. Preetam, closing comments, and of course, your inputs on this topic.
So in terms of learning, something new that I did in this COVID time is actually I subscribe to a lot of podcasts, and there are excellent podcasts for startup founders, venture capitalists. I resume office, so I travel to office thrice a week. And I use that 30 minutes, 40 minutes commute each way to listen to these podcasts. So again, takes my eyes away from a screen and takes it away from a Kindle. That's one part I do. Second thing is, I believe the best way to learn is to teach. So that's what I've been doing is mentoring, coaching some of our founders, and most of the time, rather I would say every time I've learned more from them. Either they teach me about technology or something that I'm not aware of. Third thing is to learn a new skill. I started learning to play a Yamaha keyboard, and it's very frustrating. Wow. Literally trying to read a music sheet and have a left hand, right hand coordination eye, but it is suddenly again calmed my one side of the brain because now the other side of the brain is taken over. So when you try to learn something completely new, overall you grow a lot, because learning means you become humble. You're accepting that you don't know what the other person knows. So I believe that you should always continue. Learn something new, learn a language, learn music, learn acting, learn dancing, whatever. But keep it something which is away from your day-to-day work, because there's already an overdose of everything happening around us.
What wonderful thoughts. Thank you, Preetam. Team, I know there are a couple of questions there, and I will still like to, one of the leadership skills or the toolkit that I'm following right now is not to intrude beyond the time that is allocated. I think that's very important for to remember. So I'll take a liberty on behalf of my panel to assure you that if you have any questions, please divert it through TreeHub and we will be happy to answer on a mail. But at this point in time, if we do that skill set and if you use the toolkit that has been provided, I think we will be able to create an effective leadership that will help us to navigate through this crisis, rebuild communities, heal the world, and forge ahead in the opportunities that are created by this pandemic. On that account, thanks for your time today. Thanks, Shankar. Thanks, Preetan. And thanks, RVG. It was excellent speaking with you. Looking forward to a lot more interactions like these.
Thank you.
Great,
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, RVG. Thank you, Preetam, for such a wonderful talk. I believe the audience over here online and of course in the Zoom platform had a great 1 hour, and that was a really, really amazing session. I could see many of the comments coming in. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have speakers, leaders like this in our platform, and we definitely look forward to have many more such sessions. And to Saurav, thank you so much for accepting our request to moderate the session, and it was wow, wonderful session on leadership. We are doing this leadership session for the first time in THub. We have done many in the domain specific, but yes, this is a wonderful session, and definitely we look forward to do many more sessions. Thank you so very much.
Take care.
Thank you. Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much for the opportunity. Thank you, Pritan. Thank you, Saurabh.